Do you take yourself for granted? That's a common expression we'd often have with people taking their partners for granted, or taking certain aspects of life for granted, their health, their comfort, their finances, their partners, their family, and themselves. Do you take yourself for granted? And the human mind has a tendency to just find the easiest and the most efficient, energy efficient way to survive. So we kind of do take a lot of things for granted. The question is, do you take yourself for granted? And I'm kind of asking it in a different way. When we say we take ourselves for granted, it's like I'm asking, do you take the fact that you are a self for granted? Do you take that for granted? And if the answer is yeah, of course, yes, of course I do. Of course I take myself as a starting point. I take that for granted. And my pointer here is to look at that, because that's the starting point of all our thought processes. They stem from that self that's being protected or judged or judging in life. And that taking for granted is quite an interesting illusion, actually. Because if you take yourself for granted, you never have to look at it. The stages of looking into the truth of the story of who you are, the one that you've always taken for granted, the first point, the primary perspective, which is me, I, self. If we look into the truth of that, the first thing might be, okay, I'll look into that truth, and I can't really identify where that is or what that is. And that's interesting, because I've always just assumed that it was just me, the self, I. That's just what is always assumed in humanity, in society. We assume that I, me, the self is the first point. And it's true, and it's just taken for granted. However, if you look into the truth of that, the first part might be, okay, well, that may not be what I thought it was. That's interesting. That's quite interesting. So what else? What other way could it be? What other explanation is there? And then you go through this seeking stage where it's kind of, there's a glimpse of awakened idea of maybe it's not what I thought it was, but I need to know what it is now. If it's not that, I need to know what it actually is. And that's a normal way that the mind is still working in dissecting and knowing and quantifying and objectifying objects, separation. And, the thing is, you don't actually need to know. You don't actually need to know. And if the mind really can relax into that state, then there's just life expressing freely, and the interaction that you feeling is happening with that. So look into who or what you are without taking it for granted, without stopping the mind from expanding and looking at the bigger picture.